Hey folks, Why Would You Ask That is a podcast that answers some of the weirdest questions. A lot of those are inappropriate for some listeners. If you're squeamish, easily disturbed, or just having a bad day, this may not be for you. But if you've got to know the answers like we do, stay tuned.
Why Would You Ask That? Brought to you by me, they, them, and
Karen, she, her, and
Remy, he, they. I'm sorry, I forgot you were saying the and.
No, you're fine.
Now we both said the and.
Yeah, it's a joint effort.
And our new fourth co-host. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you guys not?
No.
Only the pure of heart can hear his voice.
Oh, I'm out.
I think he's lying to you. I think it's the other way around.
I don't
He
doubt
also
it.
says, oh, ask Remy. Okay. Remy, our co-host wants to know, what is dark tourism? Like, what the hell is that? What makes it dark? Dark as in edgy? Dark as in shady?
Or is it dark as in nighttime tourism? Like ghost tours?
Well, thank you for introducing the topic today, fourth co-host. Dark tourism is the first thing. Edgy, sort of. Every year, millions of tourists around the world venture to some of the unhappiest places on Earth.
Ooh, clever.
So these are sites of atrocities, accidents, natural disasters, or infamous deaths.
Oh, so like serial killer house, the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah. So tourists are making the worst parts of history a piece of their vacation, if not the entire point of the vacation. And so that's dark tourism.
Okay. So kind of like that time that I went to DC just to go to the Holocaust Museum?
Yeah.
There we go. Dark tourism. Well, thanks for listening.
I'm glad you have an example readily at hand. My example in the next paragraph is a paragraph.
Oh.
Yeah, because I have a lot of words. Yours was much more succinct.
I do my best.
Does suck ink.
I do. Sorry,
Okay.
That's not safe for work.
Have we ever been concerned with that? Is that a thing that we had to? Oh my god, are children listening?
No.
Go to bed, you sick fucks!
We gave you a whole warning about this.
No, they listened to the first episode.
They could think that they're a cool baby, as like the McElroy opening. Hello, you cool baby.
We did start getting listeners recently in the, 18 to 22 category. So somewhere out there we have a listener who's barely not a kid.
Wow.
I mean, that's fine. Teenagers are
Yes.
fine. But if you're 6 years old and you're here, what the hell are you doing? Go to bed. Go play with your Power Ranger. Is Power Ranger still a thing?
No. I'm just kidding.
I'm
I
sure
don't
that
know.
they are. They have to be. They're timeless, right?
Yeah. I think they're timeless. I can't imagine a world without the Power Rangers.
Okay, so me personally, when I have the opportunity to travel, I like to go to unique places inside of that city. Like when I go to a city, I like to go to fun touristy places, but I like weird stuff too. So we've been looking at Illinois lately for bunches of reasons, but I like a lot of stuff there too that I would like to just vacation at. So on the regular weird side, maybe I want to visit somewhere called Snake Road.
Ooh.
They close that place twice a year to accommodate thousands of snakes and other reptiles and amphibians that cross it while migrating between their winter and summer areas.
Don't tell Josh. Don't tell Josh. Do not tell him.
I wasn't. That would be cool to watch. And that's weird, but not dark. That's just regular weird tourism.
It does sound super cool, though. Count me in.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go.
Gaycation.
So like Karen said, dark tourism for her, she went to the Holocaust Museum in DC, and she went to DC specifically to go there. So dark tourism is like if I went to Chicago, but specifically because I wanted to go to the Alley of Death, where 600 people's bodies were held after the fire at the Iroquois Theater.
Oh no, that's awful.
That's dark tourism.
That is dark tourism. That's the kind of stuff my dad loves, too. I mean, he wouldn't describe it as a dark tourist thing. He'd be like, it's history. Or like going to Gettysburg, right? Like, that's dark tourism.
It is dark tourism. Gettysburg is actually literally 2 paragraphs down from here.
So, here's what I'm thinking. When does it cross the line from, like, interest into disrespect? Is there a line?
This is legitimately the point of everything I'm having to say today.
Oh, well, okay then. I'll let you do that.
Yeah, the whole entire everything about dark tourism is that there's a big controversy about whether or not we should do it at all, whether or not it's ethical to visit some of these places or any of these places, what counts as dark tourism, and where the line is between things that can be done or should be done or shouldn't be done. The term dark tourism was coined in the 90s, so it's sort of entered the consciousness of the public to like even think about going to those places as being dark, quote quote, and not just think of it as like touring a historical site as your dad would think of it to go to Gettysburg. So everybody is still sort of mulling over where the line is at. So I'm sort of meandering around the question throughout the entire paragraphs that I wrote because I don't know. I'm gonna talk to you about everything to do with it, and at the bottom you can decide. You will have probably decided where you think the line is at. I think
I already have an idea of what I think the line is, but I think it's a constructive criticism, not constructive question.
Okay, where do you start out thinking?
Oh, where do I start out? I think there's a certain amount of interaction that it's a mindset going in. You go in with the idea of this has happened. I'm learning about the place. I don't feel like a lot of places the point is to make money. It's out of interest and wanting to learn.
Education.
Versus, an educational kind of thing. Or being fascinated by something. But there's like a line, like, discuss this with the Stranger Things filming, where they're making the Nazi prison camp into an Airbnb. What the fuck?
That's disgusting.
I love that this is another episode where you've read my notes ahead of time.
We don't have a link to the doc, right?
No, we do not.
No, I don't know what you're going to discuss, but I have opinions, and
Damn.
It's just that there's a level of disrespect with treating something like a novelty versus treating something like as it is. You can't ignore the reality of something.
Yeah.
When you go in. It's like when you go into a graveyard and you're like, well, what would be something disrespectful to do in a graveyard? Because, like, I can't think of anything right
now. Prank videos.
Oh, God. Yeah, prank videos are just, like, it's disrespectful.
Yeah. Yeah. And for living people to go and, pay their respects. The last thing they want to do is be a part of your prank YouTube channel.
Yeah, like, I think it really comes down to, like, respect. I'm all down for, like, rules. Half the rules aren't real. Fuck them. But also, there's, like, things that are expected. Mm-hmm. Like, in the same way, like, if a bear walks into your house, you give the house to the bear.
Now, Karen, is your opinion right there where M is at?
Probably, yeah. It's defining the level between education and what's the word? Capitalism.
Intention, capitalism. That's a good one too.
Yeah, like people trying to make a profit off of terrible things, like plantations. Like,
God, fucking hell, no.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people get married at plantations and they just don't even think about all of the terrible things that have happened in that place where they're wanting to get married. Like, why would you want to start a life together in a place like that? I mean, I may not be any better because I know that William and Mary did some really shitty things to the indigenous communities. So I don't have a leg to stand on, probably, but I just, anyway, yeah, when it turns into making a profit and when people are disrespectful, at these places, like, I think it was, the kid who got in all that trouble, and he's a terrible person who, he went to the suicide forest. What is it called?
Okigahara.
Okigahara.
Okay.
Yeah. And he filmed it. Yeah, that was Logan Paul in his stupid fucking little Yoda hat walked in and he filmed it, and just like I don't think that it should be something that I don't know. I just think a lot of things. Maybe it's me getting old.
No, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, my dad always taught, because we would go on a vacation once a year, and my parents wanted me to be very, like, well-traveled. So, and I was fortunate enough to have that experience. So, we, anytime that we went somewhere historic, my dad would always, like, remind me to be quiet and respectful. And I was a naturally quiet kid anyway, except for when I was a baby. So it really wasn't an issue. But yeah, I would have a hard time bringing, if you have like screaming children, I don't know how Seffi and Amelia would do if I brought them somewhere like Gettysburg.
They're usually very respectful up to a point because they're children, and then they get bored.
Right.
You two have mentioned keywords and phrases and topics I was going to bring up, basically like paragraph by paragraph through this document. So your thoughts and opinions about the subject pretty much go hand in hand with the bullet points of the notes that I was going to go through. So it's good. You're kind of on track with the things that we were going to discuss anyway. That's actually pretty great.
That's pretty rare considering the big long tangent we went on to start with. You're talking about McElroy and our secret fourth co-host, and,
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody has heard of dark tourism in some way or seen pictures of it without maybe knowing that it's called that, I think. Because in the age of social media, these images get shared around, mostly in the context of, oh, look at how dumb these people were. Because that's almost the only context that it ever comes up in, I think, on social media, is somebody taking a really bad selfie of themselves and posting it on social media and then getting it like hate shared everywhere. These are like people who take pictures of themselves, like making like smiley faces and peace signs in front of Auschwitz, or people who are like doing sexy photos in a bumper car at Pripyat, where Chernobyl was,
Yikes.
Can people actually even go in there yet? I'm a little out of date.
Yeah, so, the radiation levels in lots of Pripyat are actually at levels where you can go, but it's not safe to be there for, like, extended periods of time. But areas that are close to the reactor, or where pieces of the reactor touched, or where the clothing of those people are, or where the people themselves directly stayed, the radiation levels are astronomically high still, or are still in like the teens and other double-digit numbers, and you cannot go there. Should not go there, because that's going to be very bad for your body. But radiation levels that are like around 2 and lower, it's generally like okay up to a point to where it starts being a little unsafe, but won't won't like cause you a lot of harm, but isn't like the best for your body to be in that sort of zone.
I still wouldn't go. I'm not a fan of like radiation ghosts.
Mm-mm.
That's so much suffering.
Like in Fukushima in Japan, like the radiation levels in a lot of that place are like hovering around like a point five to like 1.5 in a bunch of areas, which is like generally the same general area that like big chunks of Pripyat are still at.
Mm.
And so Japan, that area of Japan is like much more densely populated than the areas around Pripyat.
Jeez. That's scary.
Yeah, but people go there, they go and do their dark tourism there, and then they pose with like at like the town square or like in the rusted out amusement park areas, and they do like, instead of doing like putting themselves in the pictures respectfully, with the intent to be in the pictures and have the pictures, but not be like gaudy and stuff, they put themselves in the pictures and like smile and do silly things and like, or be like sexy Instagram model or whatever, and then people share those pictures everywhere and go, this person's so dumb, or like, this person, look at what they did, this is so disrespectful, and then that gets shared around and not like 100 other people who maybe also went there and were perfectly respectful.
Yeah.
The controversy around dark tourism gets propagated because of like this right now in the age of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And this is generally why I think, according to a lot of my research too, that there is as much of a controversy as there is, because as you said, Karen, your dad likes going to battlefields,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a form of dark tourism. But he wouldn't think of it that way.
Mm-mm. No,
A lot of people.
he's like, that's just regular tourism.
A lot of people like going to cemeteries, like historic cemeteries and battlefields and museums and stuff like that are about death in some way, and would not consider that going somewhere solely to see something about death is in any way weird.
Yeah.
So, but those things are, there's like a spectrum, and those things are over on the mild side.
Yeah.
So visiting places associated with death and suffering has been popular way longer than the 20th and 21st century. Tourists flocked to the smoking fields of Gettysburg in 1863 to see the aftermath of the battle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people watched.
Yes, people like did a picnic while the battle was happening.
Yeah, it was like going to the movies.
I just read something the other day too. I was on a website called like Dark Ozark or something that was talking about like the only remaining Civil War shelter in our state, and it was showing like some pictures, and it had like some accounts from a first-hand source, like journal entries from somebody who had like stayed in the cellar during a battle that had happened on the farm above the cellar, which was fascinating. But then the other journal entries were from that kid's mom that said that she would come upstairs and go into the house during the battle.
What?
And she would like make a sandwich in the kitchen.
The fuck?
While the battle was happening, she was like, I would come up occasionally and get some victuals while the battle was going on the Sanderson farm or whatever.
Oh my god.
And it was like talking about how she said only occasionally did a stray bullet come through.
Oh my god.
And then there was a couple of lines in there about how sometimes they'd leave the kids downstairs and the adults would go upstairs and watch the fighting happen. And that they only stopped doing that because the fighting came into the house.
Mm-hmm.
So people have been doing this a long time.
I think it's human nature to be fascinated by the macabre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Like, we sit and we think about, like, the experiences of other people, or, like, how it happened, or, I mean, because, like, think about how popular true crime is right now. Like, I say right now, but it's always been really popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stupid popular. I mean, I was raised on pulp books for true crime. And like my parents used to buy me books about serial killers when I was a kid. Like it's just something that people are fascinated by. And I think that's okay. I think it's fine to be fascinated. It's just like looking at the weird shit humanity does. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's just when you're not going in with the right mindset is when it's like fuck you.
Yeah. That's when it's like, really, guys, come on. Have some class. Like,
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's right. I mean, like, and then we live in the South, and there's this like huge thing about we get the tornadoes down here, and people go out and sit outside to watch the tornadoes. Is the stereotype that if you live somewhere where tornadoes happen, that like you're gonna sit outside and watch the storm happen. I can't even lie and say that I haven't gone outside during a tornado warning.
I mean, I pressed my fucking face against the fucking glass. Like, whenever a tornado comes, I'm like, oh, the sky's gonna change into weird colors!
And so, also, like, for me personally, in the north part of the state, there was, like, a huge tornado that, like, destroyed the town that I grew up in. And I was literally outside under a bridge in the middle of it when it happened. So,
holy shit.
In
That's
a car
horrifying.
Under a bridge. So,
damn, dude.
Yeah, when it happened, my stepdad said, "Let's go," and put me in the car and took me because he wanted to go and look at it. People do dumb stuff when they want to look at disasters and dark stuff. Like, people just want to. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. So the Civil War, Gettysburg, Anton Chekhov left his playwriting career in the 1890s because he wanted to become a gulag tourist, quote.
Oh.
Yeah. People pay a lot of money to take their, like, selfies in front of tombs like the Taj Mahal or to tour the catacombs in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
You might not think about it, but people pay also money to travel to New York specifically to go to the site of the 9/11 attack and look at the memorial that's there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a standard now. I mean, people go to war memorials and shit. You go to memorials, that's part of the history package.
That's over there on the mild side, yeah, with things that people don't even think about anymore. Slightly above going to a memorial is visiting somewhere like the Murambi Genocide Memorial Center in Rwanda, which is a museum of sorts. Or you could go to, when you go to like the Colosseum in Rome, you might not consider that being a dark tourism site, but quite a lot of people died in there. And you are going there specifically to visit a place which was all about death.
Yeah, it was battle to the death.
I mean, other things happened in there, other kinds of games happened in there, but there was quite a lot of violence in there, violence and suffering and death. So, quote, "There's no shortage of tourist sites of death, disaster, or the seemingly macabre," says the UK-based Institute for Dark Tourism Research.
Institute for Dark...
We're both just like, wait, what?
Wait, what? That's a place? That's an institute?
It is.
Ooh. Can I work there?
It would be a really cool job.
Are they hiring? All right, time to go to their about page. Scroll all the way down, look for careers.
So, quote, "It's not a new phenomenon," says J. John Lennon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
A professor of tourism at Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland, who coined the term dark tourism in 1996. He says, quote, "There's evidence that dark tourism goes back to the Battle of Waterloo, where people watched from their carriages as the battle took place, and that was in 1815. But he cites an even longer ago example, crowds gathering to watch the public hangings in London in the 16th century, and then again the Roman Colosseum, where huge crowds gathered to watch all that happen.
Witch trials.
Yeah, people watched that happen too.
They sure loved it. They were like, ooh, yeah, let's burn a witch.
You have anything to do on Saturday? Oh no, Sally's getting burned. Again? Yes, it didn't take the first time.
Did I tell you too that that in my ancestry was a woman that was hung for being a witch at Salem?
Oh
Yeah.
my god. You're a witch.
Karen, did you just miss it when I posted about it?
I must have. I'm not altogether. I will be honest.
This just seems like a perfect organic moment to bring it up where other people can hear about it.
Yes.
Guess what, everybody? Remy is related to witches.
We're gonna have to go visit their grave.
Yeah, she was Rebecca Nurse. And
What?
if you Google her, apparently she gets brought up in a bunch of movies.
Yeah. What?
But she's on my father's side of the family ancestry.
Oh, holy shit. You're related to Rebecca Nurse. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know the name. Sorry, hold on. I know the name, and I'm trying to think of why exactly. Oh, yes. Okay. Hang on.
Yeah, every word.
Yeah, she's in the Crucible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, she gets stuck in a lot of movies, specifically because her story was particularly awful because she was an incredibly well-liked member of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like 71 when she was accused.
Yeah.
Bro. Oh, that 71-year-old lady really fucked me up!
Yep.
So she was accused when she was 71 and was described by others as being an invalid.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine?
Yes, when she was accused, there was literally a public outcry against it.
Oh, whoa.
Because she was considered to be extremely pious.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. And even her neighbor and some men accused her, and then like pretty quickly, even the neighbor who accused her was like, sorry, I changed my mind.
Fucking hell.
So her neighbor accused her and then took it back, and literally at her trial spoke in her defense. Spoke in Rebecca's defense.
Wow.
And then a bunch of people in the community signed a petition for her not to be hanged as a witch.
Uh-huh. But they just were like, nah, she's totally a witch. You said she was a witch once. She's a witch.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, I know that they thought that she, like, bewitched the girl to turn to her defense, and she, like, had bewitched the whole town, and they were like, we're not falling for that shit. We're men of God. Be gone, you harlot.
So the judges actually said that they were really sorry and that they hoped that God would look favorably upon her. They said, "We hate to see a church member accused," quote. So they followed through with it because they had to do it because they did it with everybody else. And then the reason that she actually got convicted of being guilty was because they brought somebody else up at her trial and said, because somebody else said that this woman is also a witch and signed a pact with the devil at the same time as Rebecca did. And then Rebecca's 71 and really hard of hearing. And one of the judges said, so are you two also witches together? And Rebecca said yes, accidentally.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Fucking sucks.
It says the jury ruled Nurse not guilty of being a witch.
What?
Due to the public outcry and renewed fits and spasms by the afflicted, quote, quote, which were the people that were claiming, like, to still think that Rebecca was a witch, the judges had to re-review her case.
Oh
and one of the particular points was emphasized, and the jury requested a second chance of deliberation. The jury asked Rebecca to explain her remark that another accused witch, Deliverance Hobbs, was, quote, of her company, the implication being that they had both signed a pact with the devil. Fatally, Rebecca, who was very hard of hearing, did not hear the question. She later explained to her children that she was referring to this woman as a fellow accused witch, not as a fellow witch.
Right.
However, the jury changed their verdict because they took it the other way. And then literally, the governor wrote a letter saying not to convict her of being a witch, but it showed up after she died.
God damn it.
That's bull honky.
People are the worst.
Yeah. I have a little story saved in my ancestor profile stuff because a bunch of other members of her family were also accused of witchcraft.
Oh.
Damn, bro.
It was like 7 or 8 or 9 other members of her family were also accused of witchcraft, including a man.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking chill.
But none of the rest of them were executed. Anyway, I just wanted to share it because it's one of the more interesting pieces of my ancestry.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love it.
So one day I'll visit the homestead, which is now a museum of the nurse family, and that will be a form of dark tourism, just to circle back around to the actual topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job.
Well, also, it should be noted that the family was so pissed about this, as they should be, that they fought for an enormous amount of time to get her body, and then they wouldn't do it, and I think they just dug up her body themselves and just basically stole her body.
Oh my God.
Fuck yeah, bro.
So that they could just bury her body on their own family property.
Justice.
Yeah, good kind of grave robbing.
I was like, this would be my family.
Yeah. Like, fuck you! She's going on our land! She's not a witch! Fuck you!
Fuck you.
And then they wouldn't give up the family property because they were like, no, we just won't. They refused to give the property up, and then eventually, finally, the state had to issue an apology to the family.
Yeah, you're damn right.
I'm very proud of the rebellious, angry streak that runs through that side of my family.
Yeah. I'm just imagining a bunch of yous in, like, different pilgrim outfits.
It's funny.
It's sorry. It's funny to me.
It's funny.
Thank you. You got the buckle shoes and everything.
So this just touches on the history of how dark tourism isn't new. And in my classic format, I'll tell you how people take it too far now. And so, for example, you can tour the tunnels underneath Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam and see the tunnel system that was instrumental in the Vietnamese success during the Vietnam War. And when you do that, you can go down into the tunnels and shoot AK-47s in the Viet Cong guerrilla maze.
No.
I feel like that's missing the point.
Yep. I would say you can buy tours to go into the active war zones in Syria or into the active war zones in Israel and witness missile strikes.
What the fuck? Seriously?
These are on the other side of the spectrum, seriously. On the other side of the spectrum, on the maybe not side. Yeah.
Who is taking these people?
Enough people that it keeps them going, I guess.
Like, I mean, I understand if you're a journalist, but, like...
Oh, no, these are regular people. Just regular people do it.
No. Don't spend your money on that.
Yeah. So I watched a documentary. It's on Netflix, and there's like 8 episodes. There's a man on there, and because it's on a show on Netflix, I can use his name, named David Ferrier, who is a journalist of some sort. I'm unsure what kind of journalist he is, but he's a journalist of some variety who says that he likes dark tourism. So he's going to go do some dark tourist stuff. Now, notably, every single website I did research on mentioned this show and also said that he doesn't do it right. So,
wow! Imagine, like, not being able even to be a tourist correctly.
So, specifically...
Bar's low.
Specifically, there is a whole website dedicated to putting together the dark tourist attractions, which is just called darktourism.com or darktourist.com. I'll link it on the resource page that has a very long alphabetized list categorized by country of the different kinds of dark tourist things that you can do. And specifically, they do want you to know to be ethical and respectful of the appropriateness of the things that you're doing. So they only list things that they have deemed to be on the appropriate side of dark tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And they also mentioned on their website that he did it wrong.
Wow. Wait,
Ow.
so this is that show that's always advertised to me on Netflix, right? Dark Tourist.
I guess. Dark Tourist, yes, that show.
Okay. All right.
So I watched it because I'm an insomniac and I'm up till 4 a.m. every morning. So I just watched it while I was awake. And so on that show, just some notable things that he has done, the things that count, I guess, according to the research I have done, was that he paid to go tour the locations where Pablo Escobar lived and operated,
Mhm.
and then paid to go on a tour led by Pablo Escobar's personal hitman.
I have a tangent for this actually. Yeah. So that was a big that was a big selling point for the people who tried and failed, or maybe conned everyone into the fire festival.
Oh, Pablo Escobar's island.
Pablo Escobar's island. That was a big deal. And he had it. The guy who was the head, he had the island, and it was a beautiful island. It's a beautiful island. And he was so jazzed. But the thing is that the family who owns it, they're like, we just don't want Pablo Escobar's name to be anywhere on your advertising. They're like, we don't want that. But he did it anyway because,
Fuck that chicken strip.
yeah, it's the unethical dark tourism. He's like, look, nobody's going to come if they think it's just some regular island. It'll be 10 times more profitable if I say that it's Pablo Escobar's island. And then that's the island where all of those beautiful images come from, the whole idealized commercial, basically, for Fire Festival. That's where those came from. But after he announced it as Pablo Escobar's island, the family pulled out. They were like, nope, you can't. We had an agreement. And that's why they had to move to a different island. And that's where shit hit the fan.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I did learn from watching that episode that people in Colombia have a really complex relationship with the remembrance of Pablo Escobar.
Mm-hmm. I don't really know a whole lot about him, but I think I've seen some episodes of some, true crime documentaries that are about various most wanted people. And I don't know, he seemed one, ruthless, and then on the other hand, wasn't he kind of like a folk hero almost?
Yeah, so this episode of the show specifically, the dude, I don't know where he's a journalist when he's not doing this stuff, but he did interview a lot of people from a bunch of different walks of life. So he talked to Pablo Escobar's ex, and she talked a lot about her life since Pablo Escobar, as far as I remember. But then he interviewed a bunch of people from just around the community who honestly had nothing but nice things to say about Pablo Escobar.
Wow.
Because they mostly had stuff to say about how they recognized that he brought a bunch of drugs into and out of their community, but also put an enormous amount of his drug money into building up the community and putting people into houses who otherwise didn't have houses. And I was like, interesting. And then he talked to a police officer who now runs the dark tourism Pablo Escobar tours, and who's not a cop anymore. That guy talked about how he had been a police officer when Pablo Escobar was doing his thing, and he talked about how to be a police officer while Pablo Escobar was operating, he was like, you were either a dirty cop or you were a dead cop.
Yep.
And the guy was like, oh, so you were a dirty cop? And he was like, yeah, I was a dirty cop. I took Pablo Escobar's money.
Yeah. Like, the fuck else are you gonna do? You have to...
And I was
Revival
like,
thing, bro.
yeah. I was like, excuse me, I would also be a dirty cop because I don't want to die.
Yeah, like, let's see. Let the scary guy do the thing with the stuff, or death. And because he's not going to let you leave, right? Like,
no, because he was really ruthless. Even the people who had nothing but nice things to say about him also would circle back around to the ruthless stuff, which I guess isn't nice, but it would be like a footnote to the rest of it.
right.
Then the cop just said that, he said, and I guess I'm still taking Pablo Escobar's money because I'm just profiting off of his legacy. And honestly, he'd like that.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
Yeah. But then for the second half of the episode, he went on a tour with Pablo Escobar's personal hitman and spent the rest of that episode just touring the prison and talking to the hitman and going on and on about how unhinged this guy was, but also provoking him to be unhinged. And I was like, well, you've taken a turn, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the first half of this was fine. You were touring places that were like around the neighborhood and were like on the established tour and everything. And like, that's fine. And then you took the other tour, and the hitman specifically told him not to ask about that stuff. He says, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't want to talk about killing people.
Yeah.
He actually said it several times during the course of the tour because the guy kept bringing it up, the journalist.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen, man, that's in the past. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then the dude would bring it up again and again and again and again. And he just kept being like, so what was it like killing people for Pablo Escobar? Don't you feel bad about killing people? Don't you feel bad? How many people have you killed? Isn't this the place where you murdered a bunch of people? And it was like, shut up, guy, stop. The dude keeps telling you that he's trying to turn over a new leaf. Like, come on.
Yep. Like, I mean, on the one hand, like, he's trying to turn over a new leaf, but on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know, if someone killed my dad for choosing not to take Pablo Escobar's money, I'd probably grill him.
Well, this guy is a New Zealander, is a white New Zealander, so he has nothing to do with Colombia.
Yeah, no. Yeah. No.
He just wants, in all of my research, it talks about that people who do dark tourism the ethical way are not there getting some sort of sick fascination out of it. And I was like, okay, but during this instance, this dude was either trying to get a scoop and was pushing this guy beyond his limits to get him to say gross things for the camera, or was getting a sick fascination out of watching this guy talk about murdering people.
Yeah.
Because he pushed him until the guy finally started talking about it. And then the guy was like acting out how he shot some guy in the head with a real gun. And then his voiceover comes on and he's just like, clearly this guy is unhinged and can't leave his past behind.
The fuck?
Bro.
And I was like, well, you spent an hour trying to force him to talk about it, man. So this is just a good example to point out your point that it is about intention.
Yeah, like, I was thinking that's probably why they didn't want them to put Pablo Escobar's name on it, because they knew that it would be marketed to a bunch of rich white kids and, like, influencers and supermodels who were gonna come and just because of the notoriety and not because of the actual, like, interest in Pablo Escobar and what he meant to the community. So they didn't want his legacy to be trivialized, I guess.
It's also just not good for, PR reasons.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't claim to know what they were thinking in this regard.
That's true.
So this is just, and this was every episode of that show, basically. He would do one or two things on the episode, but then, like, one of them would be fine, and then the other one would be like that.
Mm-hmm.
One episode in Mexico, he is attending a festival celebrating a goddess of death, and then the other part of the episode, he attended a live exorcism.
Oh.
And I was like, that poor woman who's in this episode is having this moment of her life exploited.
Yeah, that's... Did she write a waiver? Like...
No.
No?
No, he went into the church to interview the priest. And then she walked in of her own volition trying to talk to the priest about something else.
Did they blur her face or anything?
No. She walked in like 10 minutes after he had been there and was trying to ask the priest a different question. And then his voiceover comes on and says, at this point, the priest has decided that she's possessed by a demon and he needs to exorcise her. Then his voiceover came on saying that the priest has decided that this woman has a demon in her and he needs to exorcise her. And then the priest just started praying and like pushed the woman down into a chair and just went about his business. And the guy was just like, let's film this. And then just did it. So no, he didn't have a waiver or blur her face or anything. He just filmed the whole thing. Yeah, that's what it was. And the other episode that I noted on here as being an interesting thing that he did was him and a bunch of other white people paid to go on a tour of a simulated border crossing from Mexico to the U.S., which was designed
My God.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Which was designed to demonstrate to white people specifically the kinds of struggle and hardship that people who are choosing to cross the border illegally are putting themselves through in order to enter the country, and the reasons why they are often doing it, which is political unrest, gang problems, drug cartels, and things like that. So they made them go through like a presentation or something at the beginning, so to talk about those things, and then they sleep deprived them, gave them rations of like very little. They had like a limited amount of water. They had a guy who was like in charge of the group who like took his role very seriously and was like, from here on out, you're going to be just like this is the real thing. And then he would like yell orders at them and like tell them exactly what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. And they got up at like 3 a.m. and walked for 12 hours straight.
Oh my God.
And they did that for days and days. During the course of these days, they were shot at, robbed by a drug cartel, had to cross the river, were robbed by some other people, in which point the guy had a gun held to his head. This white tourist journalist guy, somebody put a gun up against his head and demanded that he hand over the drugs in his bag. And he said, I don't have any drugs in my bag. And then they opened his bag and there were drugs in his bag because they planted them in there, the tour people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, those are mine!
Oh my God.
And then they were like, the actors on the tour were like screaming at him, like pointing a gun in his face, saying they were going to shoot him. It was very real. I was scared.
Yeah. Jesus.
He looked like he was going to pee himself. I probably would have peed myself.
Yeah.
And they were like, whose drugs are these then? Whose drugs are these? Yeah. And he literally looked at the first person he could see, which was the guy in charge of his group.
Oof.
And pointed at him. And so they turned around and they fake shot that guy, which was the guy leading them to freedom.
Oh my God. What an idiot.
And so when that group walked away, when that group walked away, all the other white people in the group were like looking at him. And he was like, I'm sorry, I panicked. Tour leader sat up and he was just like, we're going to pretend that didn't happen.
Oh my God.
Continued leading them. And then they made them run to the border, to the like wall or whatever, the fence, and then made them get stopped by border control and be like tackled, arrested, guns point at, shoved into the back of a car, detained. Like
Jesus.
after like days of that, at the end, all the white people were like huddled together and they were like, oh my God, the fact that anybody would do this. They were all like, I just can't even imagine people would do this, like willingly do this. They must be going through some really horrible times to put up with this. This is just incredible that people do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing like forced perspective.
Yeah. They were all like, I just have a whole new understanding for the things that they go through to get into this country. And I was like, wow, They really learned a lesson.
We should make politicians do it.
I was literally gonna say that, man.
Mhm.
Like, can we get these people out of cages? Like, this isn't really a
Yes.
political podcast, but we make it very clear our feelings. And my feelings is, good God, people.
Yes. Yeah. Getting people out of cages, that's not political. This crosses every administration. Get people out of cages.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, what the fuck?
Yep.
So, yeah. And I want you to keep this example that I just said, the border crossing simulation, in mind, and specifically your immediate reaction to it, and then your reaction to it when I was done, because it'll come up later. So, I already said the term dark tourism was coined in 1996, and so a different professor than the two that coined it, a different professor, A.V. Seaton, listed 5 forms of dark tourism, and so those are museums that showcase death or symbols of death in some way, such as the popular dungeon museums, so like London Dungeon, Paris Dungeon, and so on, that allow visitors to relive the horrors of a city throughout its history.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2, participation or observation of death simulation, such as reenactments of famous battles.
Mm-hmm. Gettysburg.
Yes. 3, witnessing of public deaths, though this form is less common, as public executions occur in very few countries nowadays.
I think the big one was Saddam Hussein.
Oh.
That was public, right? That was like the most modern one that I know.
Oh, I don't know, but there are still countries that do conduct public executions.
Oh yeah, there. People want the U.S. to do it too. They want to see people like Ted Bundy die.
So this would include gladiatorial combat too, though. And 4, visits to memorial sites, which encompasses graveyards, crypts, internment sites, all sorts of stuff in that vein. And 5, travel to sites of individual or mass death and or tragedy. So that includes sites of famous dead people, the homes of mass murderers or serial killers, or things in that vein, as well as sites of battlefields and genocide. So like Waterloo, Gettysburg, or the Rwandan Genocide Memorial, or the Holocaust Memorial sites, and extermination camps like Auschwitz. So stuff like that. So then I was going to say, maybe you're wondering why people like it, but you guys have a handle on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, and it's our history, and the main thing to take away from dark tourism is that in order to not repeat history, we have to keep telling it. We have to remember and keep reminding ourselves of the horrible things that have happened. And sometimes you just have to sit in it and be surrounded by it to really understand.
Like, it brings reality to history, I feel like.
Because to us, living here in the U.S., like Auschwitz and places like that, they seem so far away and so far removed from us. But it's still a place where you can go, and anyone can visit at any point. During visiting hours. It seems so far away, but that it is still there, and it still has an impact today. I think that it just needs to keep being that way. And I think that there should be a lot of... Is the Little Rock 9 considered dark tourism?
There's not a site to visit for that, is there? Because it's still functioning high school.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, you can go visit. Mm-hmm.
I was actually thinking about visiting soon.
Yeah, and there's a like statue. There's like a statue outside of the Capitol.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I didn't know that. It's shockingly underreported. The amount of places that you can go to like see pieces of the civil rights history as it pertains to people of color. So it surprises me that I don't know it exists because I live close by, but also doesn't surprise me that nobody has informed me that it exists and that I was unaware of it.
Yeah, I would think that, I don't know, when I was in school, we always went to DC for field trips. So
you lived much closer to DC when you were in school.
I mean,
didn't you?
Yeah.
You lived in a state closer, right?
Yeah, I lived up in Northern Virginia. It was like, how far away was on a
Hour or two?
yeah, like on a
Oh,
good
much
day.
closer. Most closer.
Yeah.
I lived here and in Phoenix for my schooling.
Oh, right.
Yeah. My education took place in a very, very rural and white town. Anyway, I'm actually almost I'm almost done actually. If we weren't so distractible this week, this has been really good discussion though.
We've got a lot to say.
Yeah. The most important question in this topic is whether or not it's okay to engage in this type of tourism, which we've talked about already. And you should just ask yourself, are we traveling to a place to heighten our understanding or to show off or indulge in morbid curiosity? Because your intentions in going to the place are important, as both of you have already said already. So there's no need to say it again. But I did write some things about it, so I will say it again. because you two have said things, so I'll say it.
I do have to amend to everyone that there is an ethical debate, I think, that could be made for why I visited the Holocaust Museum. My history teacher in college said that if we went to the Holocaust Museum with her for like a trip, we'd get extra credit. I had always wanted to go anyway, but that was kind of the impetus to go. So, full disclosure is...
I mean, you can't just be like, I'm not really into it, so I shouldn't go ethically. It's a learning experience regardless.
Yeah.
And I think overrides yours.
Yeah. Yeah, she just wanted everyone to go see it. She was like, this is really important, and she's like, the only way that she could convince some people to go, I guess, was extra credit. Yeah. And I was like, I'm doing okay in this class, but, extra credit.
Credit.
Her class was really easy. I mean, it was U.S. history.
Okay, so your personal intentions were sort of a mixed bag here, but overall you were going because you had already wanted to go for education reasons and use the personal gain as the impetus to get there, as the push.
Yeah, because I don't know that my parents ever really wanted to go, and they were my ride.
No.
So, like,
Yeah.
we literally took the shuttle, or the metro. So,
yeah, it's hard to get places you want to go if nobody will drive you.
yeah. And I know that some kids did in high school. They went for like a field trip, but me at my classes never did, and it just never really came up. But it was always something that I wanted to see because I had heard all about it, and that it was really moving and really, I guess, just, I don't want to say nice, but it's a beautiful museum. It's a beautiful place. Like, as far as the story that they're telling.
I think you're okay.
Yeah, like, I know. I'm just like, it's kind of a gray area.
It is.
It's very likely to have to analyze it and wonder if anything made it bad.
There's a lot of gray area in a lot of areas. A lot of things are spectrums in this discussion and a lot of discussions, but in this discussion here, there's a lot of gray area in between a lot of stuff that I'm talking about. So your intention can have gray area in it too, because you went for both reasons. There are plenty of things that I want to go do, and then because I have a lot of things happening in my life, sometimes it takes lots of things to push me to go do things that I otherwise wanted to do, but then just never do it, until I have more
Right.
than one reason to go do it. I mean, that's just life.
Yeah.
But the problematic intention is like when you're going there specifically to take selfies, or to
Mhm.
boost your follower count or whatever.
Selfies is a big focus here on disrespect.
Selfies were a big focus in all of the research that I looked at.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's distasteful. Like, I think it's really gross. Like, why do you want to take a picture of yourself in this place? Like, I mean, take a picture of the things that you see. Why do you have to be in it?
Yeah, I think that's the real issue here is when you're going to a place and you're supposed to be respectful and you take a selfie, it's a focus on the self of, hey, I was here, and not, this is the place where things happened.
Yeah.
My gosh, there's M 5 paragraphs down in my notes again.
Oh my god. Yeah. I'm good.
I feel like you've co-written this episode. So, yeah, intention is for both parties of the tour, the person going on it and the person running it. There's different kinds of tour goers and there's different types of tour runners. So some tour operators have no qualms about skewing or fabricating facts or ratcheting up the gore factor for dramatic effect or taking a very solemn place and turning it into some sort of like glitzy showpiece. And so like you brought up Stranger Things. So I literally wrote, I'm thinking about the Lukishkis prison in Lithuania, which is the former concentration camp and massacre site where they filmed all of the Russian scenes in Stranger Things season 4. And then since they have done that, I tried to search for this prison on YouTube, and like the first 15 results were bands that have now held concerts there in the last 10 months.
No.
Which irrationally angered me.
Is it really irrational if it's just...
If it's rational, like it's... there's good reason to be upset.
People's families died there.
I tried to search it during my research today. I just wanted to make sure I was pronouncing it correct, so I tried to look it up on YouTube, to hear how it was said. So I made sure I was being respectful of the pronunciation. And I literally had to search so far into YouTube to find a video of somebody pronouncing it, because the first so many videos were just people playing concerts there. And I was like, this is a concentration camp. A massacre happened here. And then somebody tried to open an Airbnb in the cells where Jewish people and Roma people were held, and they like hung up Christmas lights, and according to the Airbnb posting, all decked out in 80s themes for your Stranger Things sleepover.
No.
Stranger Things, official Instagram tried to capitalize on the Holocaust history of the place by showcasing their fans' wrist number tattoos in conjunction with the release of this information. They don't try to hide that it's a concentration camp in all of their Airbnb announcements. They say this is a former concentration camp, but now it's a hotel, and if you listen closely at night, you might still be able to hear the screams of all the Jews that were massacred here, it read in one posting, which made me want to punch my computer screen.
Oh my god, that's disgusting.
It's very disgusting.
You're capitalizing on human suffering. There's like the campfire. If you listen close, guys, you could still hear them to this day. And all the little boys and girls at the campfire go, whoa, because it's a made-up fucking ghost story, and it's not them going to a concentration camp and fucking being like, if you listen close, you could still hear all the human suffering that is still, like, in the very bones of this place. We didn't do anything else aside from put up, like, kitschy fucking Christmas lights to remind you that everything is fake and you came here not because you wanted to know about these people or because you care about the people who suffered here, but because you thought it would be cool to come here because a TV show told you it would be kind of neat.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So this example is the kind where you are exploiting a place for profit, and this is bad dark tourism. If you go here and do these things, it's bad. I tried to talk to some people about this that weren't you two, and they tried really hard to convince me that I was overreacting and that this happened a long time ago. It didn't.
It did not.
that, the 1940s is not that long. It's not that long ago, and that I should just let people utilize the space for other things, and that should it just sit there and do nothing? And yes, if 100,000 people were massacred there, and a whole genocide took place, and this place was used for part of that purpose, I don't really think you should turn it into a hotel.
No, it's still the original building. Like, I could understand people wanting to take back this place, but I would encourage people who are involved and have an emotional investment, not people who are involved with their wallets.
Yeah.
Trying to utilize this place. It should be something that a community of people decides that this is what they're going to do, and this is how they're going to pay respect or celebrate or mourn, or it's again, you have all these issues where people go in and they don't feel like it's important because they don't have the perspective. They don't feel the sort of,
they don't feel connected to it.
They don't feel connection. Like, they don't feel an emotional investment. It's a lot of people would have this thing where it's just a place. It's just a thing. And people don't want to connect with the emotional level of things because, a lot of people seem to think that connecting to things emotionally is cringe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that really bothers me a lot, because to feel passionately about something is something that is now kind of really frowned upon.
I don't know that it's frowned upon. I think it's
frowned upon if you take it seriously and you make it known that it's serious.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that there's just different sides of people. Like, we have the Gen Z influencers and the TikTok kids, but then we also have another side of that crew who's like, hey, this is really fucked up. Like, this is disgusting. Like, I mean, I know that the other side is dominant right now, so I just try to block them out and just embrace cringe, embrace people being passionate about things, and even things that really, really sucked.
Embrace cringe.
Yes.
It's okay to be into things, and it's okay to like things, and it's okay to feel strongly about things.
Yeah.
The issue comes when it starts hurting other people. And it's okay to not care about shit, because I don't care about a lot of shit about how things affect people, and I care about the level of respect afforded to people who suffered through no fault of their own.
Yeah, who suffered needlessly, and they can't speak for themselves anymore.
Yep.
And there are people who can't even speak for them anymore, because it has been long enough that a lot of people have passed away, but there's still like families who are reeling from it, that are still recovering.
It's generational grasp.
Mm-hmm.
Not so far away that this is like dinosaur times. Like a fucking triceratops did not torture like another kind of dinosaur whose name I can't come up with right now.
Pterosaur. I don't know.
I was gonna say like Parasaurolophus.
Pterodactyl.
Or
Pterodactyl. Pterodactyls are bigger than triceratops.
also, they're not dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Well, excuse the fuck out of me. I only know this from Land Before Time, okay?
All right, bro.
I mean, I did have a lot of dino video games growing up, but
it all puts them at about the same time.
I replaced that knowledge with a need
Adam Driver.
to. I knew you would say that, and I knew you would say that because that's exactly what happened in my brain. I saw him, tits out, and I was like, God, get out of my head.
Yep. Okay. To finish it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I put just slightly further on that you should talk to the communities involved about what their feelings are on these things to know if they're ethical or not, if you're questioning. And so on the one hand, I'm certain that the people surrounding the concentration camp had to give permission to Stranger Things to use it, and paid them, like they paid the money, Stranger Things people did, to use it, because otherwise you can't just go steal the location and use it. But still, there was also a petition going around by the larger Roma and Jewish community, like as a whole, saying no, this is very harmful to the entirety of our community. So the one city, I would say in this instance, it's complex and complicated, because in this instance, your one city that says yes doesn't outweigh the entirety of the entire two communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is why there's complexity.
Because, I mean, maybe the contract, they were like, yeah, go for it. And, I mean, they didn't know what was going to happen. And then they were like, oh, we're doing this thing. And they're like, what? No. And then they're like, yep, we're doing it. It's in our contract. And then they're like, ah, fuck. So, because they didn't think that anyone would do something so horrible as an Airbnb in a concentration camp.
So, others obviously approached sensitive subjects such as genocide, terrorism, and nuclear disaster with the care that those subjects require. Confronting darkness and horror in our history can lead to a profoundly moving experience, as you have both already said. Bringing war, oppression, violence, and injustice to gut-wrenching life and deepening our capacity for compassion and empathy. That's what it does for me anyway, and that's what it seems to do for a bunch of people. Within that spectrum of dark tourism sites, the most meaningful ones can help visitors understand the present and be more thoughtful about the future. Here's a quote from the guy, John Lennon, the professor that I quoted earlier, and one of the ones who coined the term. Quote, "These are important sites that tell us a lot about what it is to be human. I think they're important places for us to reflect on and try to better understand the evil that we're capable of." And then I thought it was really interesting because according to a Washington Post article that I read, there are efforts underway to research the way children experience dark tourism. And you brought up my children. So this is also why I thought it was really weird that you guys are so in sync with my notes.
The brain cell, it's expanding.
There's a joint project between the Institute for Dark Tourism Research and the University of Pittsburgh researching this. So somebody named Mary Margaret Kerr, who's a professor of education and psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh, says the idea came about when the National Park Service asked her to help create a team to design children's materials for families who visit the memorial to United Airlines Flight 93, which was the one hijacked September 11, 2001, and crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. So her research team includes middle school students who have studied how their peers interact with the National 9/11 Pentagon Memorial in Washington, or the site of the Jonestown flood in Pennsylvania, which killed more than 2,200 people in 1889. She said the goal is to provide appropriate safeguards and ways to experience a site even for children too young to grasp the history, quote, so the family can be there together, but each member of the family can take meaning that works out for them at their age and stage, end quote. So, with more people visiting places like Pripyat or concentration camps, or the site of the Rwandan genocide, or the killing fields in Cambodia, or taking a fake border crossing tour package like that journalist did, to experience the hardship firsthand, more people will learn about parts of the world and the real struggles of people who are living a life different from themselves, but also there are more chances for those social media selfie mess-ups, which have been so prevalent in all of my research. It's weird to me that people need to be told not to take sexy selfies inside the gas chambers at Auschwitz, but some people do apparently. So, I don't get it. So here's a very general checklist of things you shouldn't do. You should not do these things. Photographing people in moments of sorrow. Smiling and laughing around those experiencing sorrow and hardship. Treating people as if they are museum exhibits. Unless you are in a human museum, because those do exist. I needed to put a caveat. Because, like, my university that I went to for my undergrad will do, like, a human library, I think they actually called it, where you could, like, quote-unquote, check out a human and talk to them about their life story. And this is usually just somebody who has gone through something like super meaningful and impactful, or somebody from a different culture than yours, or like like say a veteran of a really, like a Vietnam veteran or something. There are some places that do that sort of thing, and it's always with people who have like signed up to do this, and then they will like announce it. Like the Little Rock Library did it once too, because I got an email about it. So you can go and you can do that sometimes when places are doing that. So I really needed to put a caveat there that unless you are specifically going to an event where you are supposed to be talking to people as sort of like a living museum encounter, and some places, like some art exhibits, are specifically installations using living people, this is a gray one too. Making inappropriate remarks. Inappropriate has a lot of meanings, and there's too many contexts. I couldn't put them all down because there's like 100, you know? You have to judge place to place what inappropriate would be. I shouldn't have to hold everybody's hand about that.
Oh, Remy.
I feel like if people are listening to this, they're either on the level of tits or the level of common sense.
Probably both. Yeah. Wearing disrespectful clothing. I think if you're going to a lot of these places, you probably are already not wearing things that would be considered disrespectful. But I think you just probably shouldn't wear, like, please don't put on your sexy clothes to go to a radioactive area.
Like in Dunder Mifflin, in The Office, they go to Gettysburg, and Andy's made like these bright pink hats, and they say DM does GB.
Oh,
Dunder Mifflin does Gettysburg.
No,
that is not what that means.
No.
Yeah. So
yeah. Don't wear your sexy clothes to go to Pripyat, because for one thing, you shouldn't be wearing so much exposed skin out when you're going to the radioactive areas. But also, you just gotta wear area-appropriate clothing. Committing to disaster tourism for personal gain, making money from others' hardships, talking loudly and disruptively about unrelated issues and subjects, showing general common sense, because everybody should have just a basic level of common sense, and then taking inappropriate selfies, which I should have covered by now enough.
Yes.
Here's something that my dear friend Thumper always taught me. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And also something that my choir teacher taught me was, if you think it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Or if you have to think about it, don't. I mean, just if you think like, would it be weird if I took a selfie here? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it would.
So for pictures are okay, even selfies, but there's history and context in these locations that you have to be aware of, which is what we've been talking about when you're taking the pictures. So largely, selfies probably should be left out, I would say, because like Em said, the selfie is just putting yourself inside of the context of the place and making it about you. But in general, when you're taking a picture and you want to take a selfie in front of something, or you want somebody else to take a picture of you somewhere, you really need to understand the history and the context of the location that you're at before you take whatever it is picture that you're taking, and before you do something in the picture that might be inappropriate. I have an example. So, you go on a vacation somewhere and you tour a plantation. We live down in the South and there's a lot of plantations, and there's plenty of them that are really beautiful, and you might tour one for lots of reasons. But if you go to tour one and you go and you tour one and you look at the enslaved people housing, and you have decided for some reason you want to take a picture there, are you a Black American reclaiming your heritage by posing on the grounds there in front of that place and taking your picture there? Because you might be okay then. But if you're a white person who's standing in front of that housing and you're like smiling and pointing at it, please don't do that.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
There's context.
People are going to be using that as like slide one and whatnot to do in a sensitive historical setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
I think the only acceptable selfies would be if there's like a statue of Abraham Lincoln and you want to see how tall he is compared to you, and you want to show people, and you're like, okay, stand side by side. Click.
That would probably be fine for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think the selfie is inherently bad.
Right.
There's a time and a place, and usually it's not, in a lot of these kinds of places.
Yeah, if you're doing dark tourism, there's a history and a context to everywhere that you're going, because the places are inherently filled with suffering and hardship. So you need to be very aware of the history and the suffering that is attached to the place, and if the thing that you are trying to do there is about to cause you a lot of problems when you post your pictures with yourself included in them online, if you are doing something like this. And also, do you have to take a selfie in those instances? No, you don't. And if you are part of the community where the history applies to you, can you still feel that my example is inappropriate for a selfie? Yeah, you can, and that's totally valid. There are nuances and complicated histories for everybody involved. It's important to be educated on it, is the point.
Yeah. You really must at least pose like the Victorians and don't smile.
Yeah.
Just stand with your hands crossed in front of you, just looking straight into the camera.
Or holding onto a chair. The back of a chair.
Oh yeah, we have to be very specific because we did talk about those headless photos.
The headless ones, yeah.
Yes, you were just standing there with your body language saying, "I am here." Yes.
And if I see you taking a selfie in front of something that is, if I see you taking like a really disrespectful selfie, you will be one of those headless Victorian pictures.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
I just pulled out Walmart
Karen.
A final point about the pictures, which, I don't know, maybe everybody who's not part of the BIPOC community might find offensive. I don't know. Just because something at first seems problematic to you, it doesn't mean that it is. And that's another reason it's important to understand the history and context. I don't think... Just because I'm saying that doesn't mean that I have never thought something was offensive and then later decided or found out that it wasn't because I did research. But I do an enormous amount of research on a day-to-day basis. So I'm telling you, you need to do research. If you think something is problematic, like for people to go there and do the certain things there or to take pictures there or whatever, research first. And if you aren't a member of the community in question, research a lot. Using my example of a Black American taking pictures of former enslaved person's housing, if you aren't part of that community and find yourself wanting to stop that behavior because you think that it's disrespectful to do that, you need to stop and evaluate your feelings against the history of the area and the attitudes towards the behavior from the community in question. Because if that community doesn't have an issue with it, then you need to leave it alone because it's really not your place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have to throw out, like, judge silently.
Yeah.
Unless it's, like, harmful, like, actively, like, things are being damaged, vandalized, people are getting hurt.
Yeah.
People are in danger, like...
Oh, unless it's a Confederate, like, statue. Like... If it's a Confederate statue, everyone pick up your hammers. Let's get to work.
So I saw this like
I'm sorry.
Okay. I saw this it's called like the white savior attitude
complex.
or whatever. White savior complex.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this a lot, unrelated to tourism, but with Prey, and we talked about this, the movie Prey, because I've been silently collecting like a poll of people because I noticed it and I've been really interested, but I've got like a decent mix on my Facebook of people in the BIPOC community, of people who aren't, and same on my TikTok. And there's been like a very interesting thing happening where like an enormous amount of the white people on my Facebook are like, I'm not watching this movie, I'm boycotting it. It's awful that they sent that alien there to kill the Native American community. How dare they? Colonization. Rah. And then over in the indigenous community, everybody's like, this movie's so great. that main character is such a badass, and the director worked so closely with the Comanche community and worked so hard with them to make sure this movie was so sensitive to the indigenous community, and we are so cool that this movie exists and that we finally have some really awesome representation as a main character, and so on and so forth. And it's a very good non-tourism example. And when I brought this up on my Facebook, I had several white people jumping in the comments to tell me that I was wrong. And I was like, dudes, maybe you should listen to me, who's not you. But, or all the other indigenous people that I'm quoting. But, it's just a good example of like the people inside of the community are telling you all the reasons why it's okay, and not the thing that you think that it is, even if it's playing with those tropes, and that you should be okay with it, and like give it a chance, and like cool your roll a little bit, and maybe don't jump into the savior mode on this one, because their community didn't need saving in this instance, and all of them are just trying to like steamroll over the opinions of the native community and like boycott the movie and make it fail, as far as the opinions of all the white people that I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Go and watch it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's just been very interesting.
I've never seen a Predator or an Alien movie, so I'd be... I knew that would happen.
I don't even like the franchise that much, but Cody told me that it was amazing in comparison to the other movies, so I did watch a bit of it. And then he tells me that this is also like a prologue to the other movies, so I guess start with this one and then watch the other ones.
Sweet.
So yeah, personally, I don't think dark tourism should be as controversial as it is, because not when you're engaging in it ethically. People have been visiting sites of tragedy for centuries. Like, people have flocked to all those places for a long time, but social media didn't exist to blast all of the bad things that have happened because of it. So now there's an academic term for it, and people are drawn to it in larger numbers. And so with the increased popularity of like sites where you can document all the people being bad at those locations, it just gets really controversial. So
yeah,
my takeaway points were: selfie culture and everyone's need to prove they were there and make themselves a part of something is problematic, as it moves the focus from the tragedy and the victims onto the person visiting, and M said that already. Once someone makes himself the focus of the photo, they're taking agency away from the victims, often victims who can no longer speak for themselves. One of you said that already, too. I don't know if M said it when they were saying the rest of the stuff, but one of you said it.
We've been working together on this one, guys!
To people who visit sites such as active war zones as tourists, rather than as humanitarians, politicians, journalists, whatever, people there to help. To me, this isn't dark tourism. This is irresponsible and thrill chasing.
Yeah. And just icky. It's just icky.
We as humans have evolved other forms of entertainment.
Yeah. See, the idea that dark tourists derive some kind of pleasure from these sites, this is a complicated thing to explain. Many dark tourists do derive a sense of satisfaction from visiting dark tourism sites, from what I understand, but not in the way people think they do. It's not because they're vicariously playing out a sick, twisted fantasy. It's about education, and it's about being able to see a place they've read about their whole lives in person. And it's also about paying respects or feeling connected through history to these other people, because that's why I enjoy the darker things that are in this vein. Like, I watch documentaries about sad things and feel connected to the people who have lived through it, because my documentaries are almost always centered around like a figure, and usually not like a famous figure. And then I feel like viscerally connected to the events that I'm learning about by feeling like a human connection through it. And then when I'm ever in a museum or a memorial or something, that's what it feels like for me.
Yeah.
And I'm reconnecting that dude crossing over the border back up to the area about needing to know what the community feels like about it. Because your initial reaction to that guy doing that border crossing was, oh my god! And then your final reaction was, oh, okay. They do it so that the white people can learn a lesson.
Yeah.
Because
everyone should learn this lesson.
Because the people from, like, the Mexican city, I don't remember if it was Mexico City or if it was another city. I don't remember which city it was. Down there, are the ones that run the tours, and then they specifically market it for white people to learn a lesson.
Mm.
There must be like some awesome level of schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's interested, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic began, a lot of these museums and historical sites have done a lot to digitize all of their exhibits, and a lot of the written materials as well, like the first primary sources. Like I could probably never go to Auschwitz, but if you are interested, they have a lot on their website, and really a lot of these sites have something for everyone. So if you don't have the means to get there, you still have a chance to educate yourself, and you could even make it like a virtual group thing if you wanted.
Make it a group activity. Have some time with your friends or your family, and just like find some way to experience an experience together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they do like walkthroughs for some of them. Like they have those 360 cameras, and you can like walk through the different exhibits. So if you're sharing your screen with everybody.
And also, I'm just going to share that darktourist.com or whatever. That's the dark tourism guide. And it literally has dark tourist sites that are supposed to be ethical and appropriate from like literally everywhere. So if you want to go somewhere local or that's within a good drive to you, like that's available to you and that you feel safe going to, just go to that website and look it up.
Yeah. Good work, everyone.
Next week, we'll do extreme haunted houses, and I'll make a whole episode just about extreme haunted houses so I can talk about this extreme, crazy, ridiculous haunted house that might actually secretly be the place where a psychopath just tortures people.
What?
But thanks everybody for listening. We are very excited to take your questions too, because we want to hear them and we want to answer them, and we are so super qualified to answer questions. So what you can do is you could visit our website, which is whywouldyouskthat.com, and go to that little contact form, throw in a question, or you can email us at whywouldyouskthatpod@gmail.com. So please send us your questions. We don't care how weird it is, how gross it is. Just don't ask any personal questions. That's our one line. Ask your weird questions. That's what we want. So thank you for listening. This is M, Karen, and Remy, and ask us some shit. Thank you. Good night.